Welcome into the inaugural episode of Pigskin Perspectives, my thoughts on everything that is going on in football. This is going to become a very major piece of this channel this upcoming fall. And I mean, if you can tell by the timing of this video, you can tell that, as Don Henley once famously said, summer is out of reach. We are very rapidly falling into fall, which means it is just about football season, which could not be more excited for with that. So tonight, the goal for this is going to be a Thursday thing. This is getting filmed on Wednesday night because technology just happened on Tuesday and couldn't do that. So right now we're going to film one Wednesday, we're going to film one Thursday, and then to the normal schedule of Tuesday, Thursday come next week, with, Back in the Net being on Mondays and Fridays, or filmed on Monday and Friday night. You can figure it out from there. They'll be posted by the morning the day after. So yeah. So tonight, week 0, we're going to push to tomorrow. I'm going to push some over-unders to tomorrow. Basically, all the betting is getting pushed to tomorrow. Same with previews for week 0. Tonight, I'm just focusing on my predictions for, for 2 conferences. I'm doing a full conference breakdown, and then the rest of them just are getting who I think is going to win their conference championship. Just felt like going through all 10 conferences just probably gets boring after a while, so I'll stick to the 2 major conferences of focus for a lot of college football fans, I'd say. That is the SEC and the Big Ten, the 2 biggest conferences in college football, and possibly, the 2 conferences that are bringing college football's demise even closer. Obviously, some are arguing that. We say this going into a season that people are saying is going to be the last season of real college football, given all the upheaval and change that will be happening come 2024. We're possibly witnessing the swan song for our conference this season with the Pac-12. Will they still be an entity come next year? It still remains to be seen. It still doesn't look great for them, but I don't think there's been a full decision on that yet. It's the last year of the 14 playoff. Obviously, like with the Pac-12's demise, that means everybody's moving out. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington will be in the Big Ten next year. Arizona State, Colorado, and I am completely blanking on one. Actually might just be Utah. That's the one I was forgetting. They will all be in the Big 12 come next year. Texas and Oklahoma depart the Big 12 for the ACC or for the SEC, and we see a 12-team playoff come next year. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, of course. But a lot of change coming, so enjoy this last year of somewhat normalcy while we can. And getting into that, might as well get into my official predictions division-wise for the SEC this year. I'll do the same thing for the Big Ten, and then we'll just get into conference champions. So the SEC, no big surprise. I have Alabama and Georgia both winning their division. I will get there, but I do have Georgia winning the conference once again, 3rd year in a row. I think they're a good shot for repeating again, so becoming the first 3-time champions. I think there's a really good shot of that. I think the biggest thing here is, though, both Alabama and Georgia have major questions at the quarterback position right now. Both of them go into this season going to be starting a quarterback that hasn't started for them before. So this could be I don't see it happening with the SEC per se, because I think those two are top of the table by far. But I'm just saying, like, for a national champion, this would be the year for somebody to contend because, they still have questions at the position. So, but given that, Georgia is still by far, I think, the best team in this conference. I think they're still by far the best team in the nation. Alabama is still, they're Alabama. Never count out Nick Saban. The quarterbacking position is the biggest question mark for me there. I think they have a really good team, the rest of the team, I should say. If they had a solid quarterback, this is a national championship winning team. It's just, what is Nick Saban going to do at that quarterbacking position? That's the major question going into this season. And you're not going to figure it out week 1 against Middle Tennessee. I can tell you that. You're probably not figuring it out. You might figure it out week 2 against Texas. You might say, hey, this guy is not it. That is a very real possibility. That game in Tuscaloosa this year. Last year it was a 20-19 final score, I believe, an Alabama victory in Austin. So should be a very intriguing game either way, now that will be a conference game come next year. If Alabama can grow into this season with whatever quarterback they have at the position, they're a very real national title contender, and I don't think that you can really count them out. Finishing, I'll go through the East first, and then I'll do the West. I have South Carolina finishing in second. I think a lot of people are underrating South Carolina this year. Spencer Rattler really had a good second half of the season. I expect him to carry it over for this full season, which is why I expect him to finish second, but it's also kind of because the East is not great. In third, a lot of people have them in second, is Tennessee. I think they're going to see a regression with Joe Milton as quarterback. I don't think they're going to get to the levels they got to last year. And I think they're going to drop a few games that they probably shouldn't. I mean, we got to remember that they did lose to South Carolina last year. And I just think South Carolina's a better team right now. They're pretty close, but at that quarterback position, I got to give the advantage to South Carolina, which obviously didn't make all the difference in me putting them second, but it made some difference. I have Kentucky finishing in fourth. Obviously, you're replacing Will Levis at quarterback, one of your greatest quarterbacks of all time at Kentucky. So that's always going to be tough to replace. It's going to be interesting to see how they play this year. They returned some key players, so I still would expect a good season from them. I mean, Mark Stoops has done a great job coaching there at Kentucky. He usually gets the most out of these teams. I mean, it feels like they're winning 9 or 10 games consistently now, which, if you tell that somebody 10 years ago, you'd think that they were insane. I have Florida finishing in fourth. I don't believe in the Gators again. I think there's starting to be a lot of question marks floating around that program, the way it's running. Graham Mertz, I don't think is the answer at quarterback. He might be good this year. I don't think he's going to be great. I think he's more of a liability than a reliability for Florida. Mizzou, I have finishing in sixth. Just they are what they are. I don't think they have any major power to get them, in second or third in the East, and they don't have enough power to finish, seventh, given that that's the bottom. But and then in seventh, I have Vanderbilt. I mean, it's Vanderbilt. I'm not really expecting a ton from them this year, like usual. We'll get into the over-unders tomorrow, like I said. But I think they'll be a little bit better than usual. I mean, they showed a lot last year, but I still don't think that's going to be enough to get them out of that East basement. And now we move over to the West, which the West is a gauntlet this year. I think 6 of these 7, I'll say 5 of the 7 teams probably can. I'll say they have a shot of winning the division. They're not going to, because there's only 2 at the top that are actually going to win the division. But I think, those other 3, if things fall their way, they could win the division. Like I said, I already have Alabama at first. LSU, I have at second. Brian Kelly in his second season. That's going to be very interesting. I thought he overperformed last year. I think they may only get better this year, which, again, puts them at a shot of making it back to Atlanta. I just don't see it happening this year. I think Nick Saban turns around this ship. It was 10-2 last year, which is just an absolutely terrible season there at Alabama. But I think LSU will finish second. I have the Lane Train of Ole Miss finishing in third. I have some hope for them. It's not a ton, but I think they're better than the rest of this division. Lane Kiffin can win some games that you think they're going to lose and then lose you games that you think they should have won. So it's all a game there. It's going to, balance out accordingly. In fourth, a lot of people have them finishing second. Some of them have them even stealing the division, which they're not going to. It's Texas A&M. I think Jimbo Fisher's seat is on fire as it has ever been. I wouldn't be surprised if they go 8-4 again, which is the thing. They really worry me. I don't think they're that good. They're going out getting some of the best recruits. I mean, that was 2 years ago, I think, was their whole, hey, maybe buying recruits, maybe not, but we ended up with the best recruiting class. So we'll see. I think they're going to go 8-4 again, and I think Jimbo Fisher may be on the outs at Texas A&M, so will be interesting to watch there. Arkansas, I really want to have hope in them this year. It's just they have an absolute gauntlet of the schedule that I don't see them getting through, and that's going to hurt their record. They're going to be a better team than what their record shows. In sixth, I have Mississippi. I think the loss of Mike Leach, God rest his soul, is going to be a major impact on this team. I mean, it's Zach Arnett is now the head coach. I think he runs almost a completely different offense from what Leach was running. And I think it's going to hurt Mississippi State this year, and I don't think that they're going to do well. And in seventh, I've said this team can finish they're going to finish 9-3 or 3-9, and there's no in between. I think it's going to be the 3-9 for them is Auburn. I think year one Hugh Freeze is going to be an absolute train wreck of a football team. Peyton Thorne, most likely QB1. I've seen him play for 3 seasons. He's not SEC material. That's going to be real fun to watch. And I think that's almost a major factor of Auburn finishing most likely 3-9 this year. That's just kind of the feeling I have. I don't think they're going to do well at all. Maybe they get to 4-8, maybe 5-7. I don't think they're going to be good at all. So given that, that is my official SEC predictions, my breakdown of the division. So now we'll move up north to the Big Ten, which it is obviously the conference I am of. My alma mater, Michigan State, obviously in this conference. No bias here. No bias. I like to be no bias at all, even though I do hate some of these teams very much. I will be not biased here. So, and you're already saying, well, look at that, you're biased. So, no, we'll explain. So I do have Ohio State winning the East. I have Wisconsin winning the West. We'll go through the East first. The SEC West of the Big Ten, an absolute gauntlet. I think Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State can win this division. I think all three of those teams are kind of on an even-ish level. I will put Michigan at the top there. They have almost everybody returning. They have something Ohio State and Penn State doesn't, which is a quarterback that played last year. Ohio State still has a question at the quarterback position. Penn State I still has a question there. J.J. McCarthy coming in, one of the Heisman favorites, which he's not going to win it. But I think this cloud of it's not going to matter for the 3 games he's gone, but the Jim Harbaugh suspension and what's coming after it, because I still expect the NCAA to drop something next year suspension-wise. They pushed it off to 24. I still am somewhat expecting something to come out of that. I don't think suspending him for East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green, I don't expect that to, really affect them. But I think the real question of what's happening after this year with Jim Harbaugh is going to play on this team, and it's going to be a big effect. They're still going to finish like 11-1, and obviously the one would be Ohio State here, because that would be the tiebreaker that gives Ohio State the conference, or the division, I should say. I mean, I think they will win the conference, but we're going to get there. But Michigan does have all that it takes to make it to the playoff this year as an unbeaten team. They're, like I said, returning almost everybody, so it's a big factor for them. I think Ohio State's just going to be that much better this year, and that is with the question at the quarterback position. I think Ryan Day is going to figure out quite soon who his quarterback's going to be, and I think he's going to, whoever it is, I think is going to turn out to be a good player, because they have to. With the wide receiver room that Ohio State has, they're going to have to perform this year. I mean, you cannot have Marvin Harrison Jr. on your roster and just let him be like, just have bad quarterback throwing to him, because he is going to want the best players getting him those reps so that he can shoot up those NFL draft boards. I mean, then you got a Emeka Udoka in that wide receiver room also. Cade Stover, I mean, he's tight end, but still. You're going to have a good quarterback, and I think that's going to help, or I think Ohio State's going to figure it out there. I mean, you still got Trayvon Henderson, too, at running back. Yes, Michigan has all the pieces there. I think Ohio State's going to be that much better. And I think Penn State they fall in third, because they'll probably lose to both of them. And from there, it really is a question if James Franklin goes 8-4, 9-3, if they drop another game. They theoretically shouldn't. I think they're going to be a really good team this year. They're not better than Ohio State and Michigan. Fourth, I have Michigan State. It's going to be an interesting year for Mel Tucker and his Michigan State Spartans and my Michigan State Spartans. They don't have an easy schedule. I will give it that. I believe the ranking is the 3rd toughest schedule in the FBS, which is just terrible for a team that went 5-7 last year, having the 3rd toughest schedule coming in this year. Everything that almost could go wrong last year went wrong. It kind of felt reminiscent of 2016, the year after they made the playoff. They went 3-9, but a lot of injuries did not go their way, and the season just derailed quite quickly. I'm not blaming everything on injuries, but I mean, the season did kind of derail with some major injuries. The major question coming into this season is the quarterback position. We still have no idea who the quarterback is going to be for Michigan State come next Friday when they play Central Michigan. It's most likely going to be Noah Kim or Caden Hauser. They both are okay quarterbacks, I'd say. I don't know how that's going to play out, honestly. I don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be. I kind of want to lean Hauser because he'll be there for longer, but then I think Kim's got more experience, so they're just going to fall into this range. I think they can finish anywhere, probably from 3rd to 6th, honestly. I think they'll even out at 4. Maryland, I have finishing 5th in the division. They did have a good season last year, but it always seems like they fall off in the second half of the season, and I just don't see anything changing from that, which leads them to being in 5th. In 6th, I have Rutgers. They started off the season good last year. And then it just fell apart. That seems like a commonality of a lot of these teams in the Big Ten. They start off well and just absolutely fall apart come late season. The Greg Schiano experience at Rutgers is an interesting one, to say the least. I don't know where they go from here. I kind of feel like he's already somewhat getting them to their ceiling in this conference. I mean, you're stuck with a tough division, at least for this year. Next year, everything changes. We don't even know what the schedule is going to look like for next year now. We did, and then they added Oregon and Washington. Now that's all gone again. So they're going to have to figure something out there. And then in 7th, I have Indiana. I don't think they're going to be good this year at all. I think this is going to be Tom Allen's last year in Bloomington. After a disappointing season last year, I think it's going to be an even more disappointing one this year. And it is going to be quite a struggle for Indiana come this season. So in the West, I have Wisconsin winning the division. Luke Fickell, first season at Wisconsin. I think he's going to turn this program around by getting them to Indianapolis come December. You might be saying, well, a first-year head coach at a new school isn't going to do something like that. Wisconsin has a really good team. They fell so far behind because of bad coaching. And Luke Fickell coming in, he's already made a college football playoff with Cincinnati. He's won 2 American Conference titles. He's been to a third, I believe, conference title game. This is not the Luke Fickell that was an interim head coach at Ohio State in 2011. This is Luke Fickell coming from Cincinnati, where he became an instant legend there, basically. I think he's going to be a really good coach at Wisconsin, and then come the 12-team playoffs starting next year, I think they're going to be a perennial contender for that. It does hurt that the divisions will be going come next year, because I think obviously, like, all the Western teams would most likely be joining the West. But, I mean, Wisconsin would fit pretty well into, making it to Indy consistently if the West continued on. I think their biggest challenge would probably be USC and Oregon coming. But that's for next year. That is strictly for next year. I think they could easily win, I'd say 10 games this year. I think they could go 10-2, make a New Year's 6th. I think Wisconsin are going to end up turning out really well this year. In second, I have Iowa. After some absolutely horrid offensive play calling and plays last year, I think it's going to be somewhat repaired for Iowa this year. It's still going to be interesting to see what plays out from there. I believe Cade McNamara is going to be starting at quarterback for Iowa, the transfer from Michigan. We'll see. Illinois, Brett Bielema, I think this is year 3, I believe, for him there. I think this is going to be his best season yet with Illinois. They are a sneaky shout for making it to Indy if they can get past Wisconsin. I think that puts them in the driver's seat, and they could very much end up in Indianapolis, but I just don't see it happening. Matt Rule at Nebraska, his first season there. Nebraska, as a lot of people said last year, the best 3-9 team in football. They had a good team, I'd say. It's just their coaching was absolutely horrific. Whether it be Scott Frost or Mickey Joseph, I believe it was the interim coach. I think Nebraska is going to be much better this year. I think they get back to a bowl game. I think they can finish probably 6-6. I think they'll steal a home game against a major opponent. I'm not sure which one yet, but I think they'll be better. Purdue, I have finishing in 5th. Ryan Walters, his first season as head coach. Think it's going to, they made it to Indy last year. Jeff Brom leaves for Louisville, and I think that puts Purdue here at 5. I think they're going to struggle a little bit this year. Minnesota at 6. A lot of people have them finishing in second or third in the West. Some even have them winning the division. They lost their 2 best players last year, or for this year, I should say. Mohamed Ibrahim, their running back, and Tanner Morgan, their quarterback, who both seemed like they were there for 10 years. They're both gone. I don't think Minnesota is going to be good this year. I think it's going to be a real struggle for them. I don't see where all this hype is coming from. And I don't think they're going to be good. I think they are at very much of a risk of missing a bowl game. And then in 7th, I have Northwestern, 1-11 last year. Then they have everything that happened this offseason happen this year. And this team didn't get better over the offseason, I don't think. So I don't see how they're going to, win more than one game, I guess. It's going to be interesting to watch. It was a really long offseason for Northwestern. You have a coach coming in that just got the job in early July. So we'll see. I think this is going to be a real struggle year for Northwestern. So that was the Big Ten portion of this video. So now we'll move right into the conferences. I have them Power 5 and then Group of 5, even though they don't really truly use those terms anymore. So winning the ACC at Florida State, a lot of people hyping them up this year. I think they're going to somewhat live up to the hype. I don't think they're college football playoff material. I think Clemson takes a step back this year, which makes room for Florida State. Ohio State, we already talked about. I have Texas Tech winning the Big 12. A lot of people hyping them up this year. That might just be me buying into the hype, but I think they might do really well this year. And I'm really excited to watch how Joey McGuire gets these Red Raiders running in Lubbock this year. I think that they could be a really good shout of winning the Big 12. Obviously, Texas is the big favorite. Texas never lives up to expectation, and I don't expect them to this year. So that's why I have Texas Tech winning the conference. Pac-12 in their swan song, maybe. I don't know. I don't think any of us know, but we're going to figure out probably soon enough. I do have USC fittingly winning most likely the final Pac-12 championship. You're returning Caleb Williams. You have Lincoln Riley as your head coach. You have Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think he's even the offensive coordinator. He's just like an offensive assistant. We're good. We're back. Cliff Kingsbury as an assistant, I just think they're going to be quite good this year. I think they're going to make the playoff most likely. And then I have Georgia winning the SEC. So then for the Group of 5, I have SMU winning the American. I think they're going to be really good this year. Sonny Dykes left for TCU 2 years ago, made it to the playoff. I think SMU is going to be kind of motivated by that. They're returning a lot of players, so I'm expecting a good season out of them. A brand new CUSA with really no good teams except Western Kentucky, just kind of leaves them as my pick to win the conference. Toledo always seems like a great shout to win the MAC. It seems like they're always competing every year with an 8-4 or 9-3 schedule, or record, I should say. The Mountain West, I think San Diego State get it done this year. I think they have all the pieces in place to win a conference title, and I think also compete for that New Year's 6 bowl game slot. They'd most likely be competing against SMU. And then the Sun Belt, I have South Alabama winning the conference. I I think they're a really good team. I don't think a lot of people are looking at them a lot. So I just like them as an underdog pick to win the conference. So given that, that is going to be it for episode 1 of Pigskin Perspectives. Make sure you tune back in tomorrow. We'll break down over-unders in week 0. So tune in for that, and we will be back then. Thank you so much for watching. If you stumble across this video, like, subscribe, and then tell anybody you know about it. And we will be back for another episode of Pigskin Perspectives.